Eddie, you're somebody who's been doing this for 40 years. You know, when you started, what were some of the things that helped position you as the subject matter expert on notes in the markets you were doing deals in?
You know, it's funny because Justin, you know, and I'm very familiar with his path. In fact, Justin and I are mutually good friends with a lot of his good clients because they like the fact that he really helps them, the real estate investor, construct good notes so they can get a good price, which is what I really did for home investors back in the 90s, right? And so in the 90s, we were using, I stumbled into figuring out how to do direct mail in 1982, right? So we had tried it a good bit and stuff, but then I really started realizing if I could become, I used to call it, Justin, you remember this? I used to call it being a third base coach.
Yep.
Right. If I could help somebody make a good note, then I became the reliable source naturally to become their exit to go recapitalize, sell the note and start over again. And there's many different ways you could configure that. But really, that's the idea. And you do have a sterling reputation in your market with real estate investors that you are the guy. Now, the fear is somebody says, well, I'm not the guy today. I hadn't start. Okay, well, then isn't it true, though, Justin, that you really started with more like a direct mail campaign? And as you learn more, then you could start building rapport where you didn't have to drop as much mail to go find business.
Absolutely. I could find the deals through the techniques that I learned, you know, from you guys at Note School. But then it was also working with investors and trying to raise capital and explaining my story and then buying notes for my own self. And showing like, this is what I do. Like I buy non-performing and performing loans. And these are the case studies I have. Like I don't have $1 million behind me, but how do I get, you know, to the point to where I can start getting more stuff? And so it's just working with investors. So I'm always raising capital, talking with investors, and I'm always looking for deals because I want to have that deal flow and I want to have that cash flow too coming in. So I can work it both ways.
Sorry, I was going to say, and Justin, you know, one of the other things, so the two things really that people look at when they get into the business is, okay, how do I find inventory? And then the second is building up an investor network, right? And you started a little meetup with just a couple of people. And then, matter of fact, I spoke at your meetup once and in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And so you were able to tell us a little bit about that, about how how that worked out.
Well, it's the unknown, right? You don't really know how it's going to work because there's no written manual or step-by-step procedure in front of you that shows you how to do this stuff. It's trial and error, and it's you cannot be afraid to step out and to find out what's going to happen. So I started a meetup with no money involved, right? Just going on to different websites and saying, hey, we're getting together, talking about notes. And, 2 or 3 people showed up for the very first meeting. And so it's kind of discouraging at first, but then you just have to understand you got to stay the course. It's like if you have a business and you use social media, you can't just have 1 or 2 social media posts and expect to get a following. You have to have a consistency and a trail of social media posts on and on and on for several months or even a year before you finally get a following. So it's the same thing with your meetup and anything else you do as an entrepreneur. You have to stay the course and be disciplined. And slowly it's a snowball. It just builds and builds and builds and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And because there's not a lot of people doing this in the note space, especially, it's easy for me to brand myself as the note guy. So I've been very fortunate that there's not a lot of, it's not crowded in this space right now. So it's been easier for me to develop a following. And I think we have over 1,000 followers for our meetup now.